Guys, do you struggle finding jeans that are comfortable and the perfect fit? Then you gotta try Mott & Bow. Mott & Bow jeans are beautifully handcrafted. They use only the finest denim fabrics from the best mills in the world. Family artisans have been honing their denim skills for 35 years, and this is evident the second you put on the first pair. Mott & Bow jeans are ridiculously comfortable with a classic, clean style. And get this, they're at least half the price of designer jeans of some of the same quality that sell for over $200. Mott & Bow is also currently the only jean company on the market to offer a free home try-on program. Just choose your first pair, along with an alternate waist size. They'll send you both pairs so you can decide which is the best fit for you. Then send the other one back free. Just try Mott & Bow today, and you'll notice a difference between them and every other pair of jeans you own, yeah, even the ones you have on right now. For 20% off your first purchase, visit mottandbow.com and enter the code MIKE at checkout. That's spelled MOTTANDBOW.com, promo code MIKE.
It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Could be an historic day today for the NFL. We could have an owner sue the commissioner. We can find out today. Not just the commissioner, the entire league. Russillo in today, Ryen Russillo from The Russillo Show, and my co-host 3 days a week, Will Cain, early here on a Friday morning.
Good morning.
My man at the hotel across the street driving in. I think everybody that fills in always does this man, it's early joke, so I don't want to do 5 minutes on that.
Nah.
We're better than that. We're better content than that. What?
You in a T-shirt? Look at me.
You look great. I
got up. I look professional. I'm ready to knock this out of the park.
I feel like you're dressed like you're trying to impress people still, and I'm over that now.
You know what?
Like, this is who I am. This is what you're getting.
And the funny thing is, I don't want to be suit guy. I don't.
Everybody thinks you are suit guy, though.
They think I am suit guy. I'm not suit guy. I'm juggling a lot of things over here, a lot of decisions, and it's hard to wake up and decide how do I make this work all day long.
I want to thank Mike and Mike, especially with everything ending this run, almost 20 years. We'll be on next week with those guys, so thanks for having us and fill in today. Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We will get to all the Roger Goodell angles on the Jerry Jones thing that was a big part of the news yesterday. The Ezekiel Elliott decision, which feels like a more real decision. The win by the Seahawks last night, Thursday Night Football Rams, a lot of hoops. But we start with the biggest news of last night.
Off the top.
Richard Sherman ruptured his Achilles against Arizona, putting him out for the rest of the season. Carroll, the head coach, announced the injury after Seattle's 22-16 win. Sherman was hurt in the third quarter while making a tackle, and he was seen hugging Seahawks players and coaches on the sideline after exiting and did not return. Sherman, who was on Seattle's injury report last week with an Achilles injury, has criticized Thursday night games in the past. He's never missed a game since entering the league in 2011.
Yeah, it seemed to come as no surprise, Ryan, as we were talking earlier. He seemed to know right away, telling teammates, it's the Achilles, which has been hurting him all season. But I guess this was the final straw. It finally snapped on him.
How about that injury confirmation where you go, I wonder what it is. He's out, and then you go, you could see it, reading his lips going, it's the Achilles, he's done. I'm a little surprised we didn't get a raging Richard Sherman after the loss and the fact now that he's out for the year, and he had this contract situation, and they spent the offseason flirting with trading him, and that was a real wake-up call thing from what I had heard, is that it wasn't so much that they wanted to move on from Richard Sherman, but they were growing tired of the act, and that they threw it out there to the league, yeah, we would listen on this, and then they didn't deny it, remember? Remember, when the team says, yeah, we're going to listen on this thing, instead of denying it like so many other people do, it doesn't just make us reevaluate who Seattle is, but I think you have to have an open mind about what Sherman's future will be with that franchise.
And when you say raging Richard Sherman, are you talking about criticizing Thursday Night Football?
Absolutely.
Something he's done in the past and hasn't done it so far with this story.
Doug Baldwin, all those guys were on it. Here is Richard Sherman on the injury.
Yeah, I knew what was happening. I mean, it's been bothering me all season. So, it's one of them things you just have to play through as long as you can. And then, when it goes, it goes. I don't know. There's a lot of stress on it, but, I think it would have gone eventually anyway. But, it definitely didn't help. But it's part of the game. It's part of the game. Unfortunately, we had to play. We had to go out there, did everything I could to try to help my team win the game. And, injuries happen.
Off the top.
Again, Will Cain, Ryen Russillo in today for the guys. Here's story number 2, and it has been story number 1 for months now. A 3-judge panel on the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has denied the emergency injunction request for Ezekiel Elliott, meaning his 6-game suspension for a violation of the league's personal conduct policy related to domestic violence is back on. This means the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals will hear Elliott's appeal on an expedited basis, but not until December 1st, pending some unforeseen legal twist, and we've had a few. Elliott now will not be able to play in the Cowboys' next 4 games: Atlanta, Philadelphia, the Chargers, and Thanksgiving's game against Washington.
Injunction, stay, emergency, appeal. I mean, I imagine everyone is tired of these terms, trying to figure out what's going on. Here's what matters. Ezekiel Elliott's not playing for the Dallas Cowboys for the next 4 weeks guaranteed, and most likely for the next 6 weeks. And if it is any consequence whatsoever that he's going to have some appeal on December 1st, you got to ask yourself, what's it matter if you're guilty or innocent if you've already served the punishment? He will have served the punishment, and everything that happens after that will be of little consequence to fans, to the Dallas Cowboys, and to everyone except for Ezekiel Elliott and his reputation.
We'll do more on this. I want to hear from Ryan Smith, who gives us the scariest phrase ever on this story, that it's not over. But still more tonight.
Off the top.
College basketball season tips today. 163 Division I men's games. The only game involving ranked teams, number 25 Texas A&M taking on 11th ranked West Virginia. That's 6 Eastern on ESPN in the Armed Forces Classic in Germany. Top-ranked Duke hosts Elon at 7 Eastern. That's Marvin Bagley III, the number 1 player in the 2017 ESPN 100, making his debut. That one's tonight, 11:30 Eastern on ESPN.
Believe it or not,
yeah,
I'm kind of into this. Duke has 4 top 10 recruits on their roster. 4. These are guys that we'll be talking about next year being drafted, and maybe because I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan, I'm a little invested in mock drafts.
You're more into the mock draft right now.
Yes. So I want to see Marvin Bagley. I want to see Michael Porter. I want to see Mo Bamba.
You're going to watch this game tonight. You're going to be back with the family.
No, I didn't say that.
Will Cain all day putting in work away from the fam. And you're going to tell your wife, hey, you know what I'd like to do?
On tonight.
Right. You know what I'd like to do, hon? Are you into this Duke thing? Have you been following the recruiting?
Off the top.
With a 3-pointer in the second quarter on Thursday in Denver, Carmelo Anthony moved to 24th all-time on the scoring list, passing Allen Iverson. Anthony, 33, sits at 24,370 points, 135 points behind Ray Allen for the next spot in the all-time list. It was, however, in a Thunder loss, meaning Melo and his team, his new team, are now 4-7 on the season, and the Thunder are yet to beat a Western Conference team, now 0-6 against their own.
All right, Mr. NBA, is it time to hit panic yet?
You know what's funny is when I watched them in the beginning of the year, I went, okay, so wait a minute, what's different about it? Because the Russ show, which is really fun to watch and was an incredible and historic year last year, it wasn't really built for being playoff success because the rest of the roster wasn't very good. So you add a Paul George, top 15 player. You add somebody like Melo, who I still think has more left despite all the hits he's taken publicly being with the Knicks. And I was horrified in the beginning of the season. I go, wait a minute. It's the same exact thing with better players. Russ isn't interested, but now Russ, I thought, was deferring to them more. He's taking 7 less shots per game this year than he was last year. And now, even though defensively it's okay, they are a mess. And every single one of those guys, their shooting numbers have dropped off dramatically from October to November. So I'm not that worried yet. Some GMs that I would talk to thought the Thunder would be the second best team in the West behind Golden State. So it's weird. They were ugly against Sacramento a couple nights ago, but I'm not too freaked out yet, but they're going to have to figure out how to play together a little bit better.
This is the story of the NBA season so far. Should we panic? Should Cavs fans panic? Should Lonzo fans panic? Should Thunder fans panic? Hopefully you can help us answer those questions today.
I don't know if I can answer them all, but I do know this. Everybody is new. The great thing about the Warriors and the reason why they've looked bored at times, although they're cranking it back up now defensively, every team other than the Warriors is all of these new pieces. And it takes time. And for a lot of the teams, it's been incredibly frustrating, of course, except for the Celtics.
Off the top.
All right, last one here. James Harden, speaking of the Cavs, speaking of new, Triple-double last night of the Rockets, getting past the Cavs. Cleveland now 5-7 on the season. Defense, again, an issue. The Cavs become the first team to allow 112 or more points in each of 10 or more straight games within a season since the 92-93 Mavericks. As for Harden, he goes for 30, 10 assists, and the consecutive 30-10 game for him coming in this week. Prior to this run, he had never even had one such stretch where he'd had 30 and 10. So that's 30 points, 10 assists, now back-to-back games for Harden.
First of all, when you're the Cavs, you do not want to be compared to the 92-93 Dallas Mavericks. That is not a standard you want to be compared against. As for James Harden, phenomenal the last two games, except, Ryan, in the fourth quarter, right? After 43 minutes, ended up playing 43 minutes, 1 for 8 in the fourth quarter last night. Does it catch up to you?
LeBron hasn't been the issue. I'm telling you.
No. I'm talking about James Harden there.
Yeah.
Tailing off in the fourth, putting these monster numbers up, but not in the fourth.
He made a play, though, to Capella to seal the game. It was the scrum. The ball's at the foul line, and then he just throws up an alley-oop to Capella for an and one. That was such an incredible play because it's chaos. Nobody really knows what's going on. Harden ends up out of the pile and then looks up and is like, hey, you know what, let me throw it over a defender for an alley-oop. So Houston keeps rolling.
Off the top.
Off the top on Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Pick from a range of coverage options with a Name Your Price tool to find a price that works for you. The show today, our first guest is who? Is it Golick Jr.? Is that usually what are we doing?
I don't know. What are you asking me for? I'm new here.
I'm just kidding. I heard him on the ride in, and I go, man, talk about tired. No, Field Yates is our first guy. He'll be here, 7 Eastern. Want to remind everybody that we are on ESPN2 as well. Do you want to get back to the Sherman stuff here? Because I already played the bite for you. He goes, I knew it. He didn't rage. He didn't rip Thursday Night Football. Doug Baldwin went off on it a little bit. Thursday Night Football is never popular by the team that loses or the team that has injuries. We saw Richie Incognito blast it the other week, and that was after the Bills got destroyed by the Jets. And I always think it's kind of a little interesting when the players will go, oh, this league, all they care about is money. And you'd be like, yeah, the money that you make a chunk of. So I'm always very pro-player, but I think whenever it comes to Thursday, we blame Thursday football for things that happen every Sunday.
Right.
Like, it's
not
like
Thursday football for football.
Yeah, right. Oh, somebody was injured. It has to be because it's Thursday. Or maybe it was football.
We should say, though, we're having this conversation in the context of, wow, can't believe we're not having this conversation. You know what I mean? Richard Sherman has not blamed Thursday Night Football for his injury.
Yeah, I'm kind of going, when's that sound coming? Is it later today?
So let's just make that clear. Let's underline that. He is not blaming yet Thursday Night Football for his injury, but he's been very vocal about Thursday Night Football in the past. And I think it's worth noting that when it comes to I listen to players. I listen to what they're saying about, it's hard to turn around on 4 days rest. Last week, Richie Incognito of the Buffalo Bills was saying, this isn't cool. It's not cool to turn around on 3 days, 4 days preparation for a game. It's not how we do it. But the data doesn't back it up when it comes to injuries. It does not show that there's any greater risk of injury on Thursday nights versus any other day in the NFL.
He already had the injury on the injury report with the Achilles deal. Anyone that's ever torn their Achilles that I've talked to, sometimes they're surprised, but a lot of guys will say, I kind of knew it was coming. Or guys that I'll know that play pickup hoops their whole lives, and they get to 40, get to 50, and go, you know what? I'm just told, unless you want to blow an Achilles, be done. Don't play pickup hoops anymore. I think Booger McFarland's one of those dudes who's always talking about it. I don't know. He's one of those ex-athletes that'll tell me I'm just terrible at sports all the time.
Tells you you're terrible at sports?
Constantly. I love these guys. Shout out to Booger. But they'll just go, I'm like, fine. You want to play? Let's play sometime. You're like, I can't play anymore. My Achilles. But you know what you should do then? Not call out anybody else if you've already put yourself on the DL forever without even having the injury. So, yeah, I'm going at Booger right now a little bit.
You've called him onto the carpet. He said that you're not good at pickup hoops, and you said, let's just put this on the court and find out.
Why don't we play a little bit? Like, sorry, handle with care. Bubble wrap around the entire legs. So, guys that have Achilles injuries like this, Sherman's going, man, I knew this whole thing was done. Here's Doug Baldwin, though, who I think is always a great listen. His teammate, receiver for the Seahawks, talking about Thursday night.
Thursday Night Football. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, Exhibit D, Exhibit Z. Thursday Night Football should be illegal because you guys don't have enough time to recover.
Okay, look, it's never going away, first of all. And if we have, I think in life, forget sports because it always happens in sports, if there's a change in our routine and we can blame the change for something that we've done, then we're going to take that opportunity. If you give somebody an excuse, they're going to go ahead and use it. So I can't tell if this is players going, oh, it's just something different. It changes our routine. We don't like it. Or if it truly is this unhealthy, dangerous, poor version of the product. Because there were some awful games to start the year. Remember how bad some of these games were? Then we got that Rams-Niners.
I was going to say, then there was some phenomenal games this year. Thursday Night Football has been somewhat immune this year to the, Thursday Night Football is an awful product.
Beginning of the year, it was bad.
I looked at it last week, and what we're in week 9.
Yep.
Something like 4 of these games have been really good, coming down to the end of the game.
This is week 10 now, right? Go ahead. Yeah, week 10.
The funny thing listening to Doug Baldwin here, and I assume that sound is from last night, so I truthfully want to hear the players. I didn't play in the NFL. You got to be respectful of guys that have and the preparation and the routine that they go through.
Do you think a lot of people are surprised by that statement that you didn't play in the NFL right now?
Well, I used to be Jeremy Seahorn at bars across Austin, Texas, just in the off season, just hanging out. So, Jason Seahorn.
Well, no,
I got the name right back in the day.
I thought you were going to say Jeremy because you were going to say you were his brother.
No.
So, no?
No, I was Jason.
Seahorn's going, that's why I get all these friend requests from Texas.
But I will say this. You usually get these complaints about Thursday Night Football from the losing side of the equation.
Sure.
From the losing team on Thursday nights, like Richie Incognito last week when the Buffalo Bills lost. You rarely hear it from the team that wins. So you are hearing it this time from Doug Baldwin after win, albeit one where they lost one of their star players. I think the strongest argument against Thursday Night Football is this. It's the one from executives from CBS Sports and other media companies. You're just watering down the product. The problem with our ratings is saturation. The problem with our ratings is too many football games. The problem is Thursday, Sunday, Monday, with college on Saturday sprinkled in between. That's the best argument to me against Thursday Night Football.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. Here's our guest list for today. Again, Field Yates at 7 Eastern, Darren Woodson at 8:30, Matt Burke and former Army Special Forces Green Beret Art Pugh at 9, Tim Tebow 9:30. All phone guests can join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. If you miss any of these guests, you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app. I'm Ryen Russillo here with Will Cain. So the other big piece of news that we have, at least from late last night, we said it off the top, and that is the 3-judge panel, Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, denying Ezekiel Elliott's request for an emergency injunction. That means he's going to be out at least 4 games until this next hearing on December 1st. Ryan Smith, our legal analyst, scaring us all with this.
No, it's not over, because here's what happens. The Players Association, when they made this appeal, they asked for 2 things. One was an emergency stay, essentially saying, let me play while you decide this appeal that I have. And the other one was to appeal the decision of the district court judge that didn't allow him to play, that preliminary injunction. The emergency stay is gone, so now he doesn't play for now. An expedited hearing has been scheduled on the appeal of the district court. So what does that mean? That means the lawyers are back in court. They will make more arguments about that injunction that the district court ruled on. They'll have procedural discussions, and then that will be ruled on. Now, if that goes against him, he has other appellate rights as well. So this thing is not over yet. But for now, he sits while the lawyers argue.
It's not over, Will, but it feels more over.
It's over.
It feels like we know what the plot is because you know at least he's sitting for 4 games.
I respect Ryan, and Ryan is giving you analysis through a legal prism. When he tells you it's not over, he means legally there is a fight to go on. But the public's appetite to keep up with Ezekiel Elliott's court case is over.
But that's been over now for weeks.
No, but Ryan, this is the nail in the coffin because what's about to happen is the punishment is imposed. He will start serving at least 4 games of his 6-game suspension. And that means, as far as the public's interest is concerned, it's over. I will say there's another angle, which is not just not over, but it's just beginning. And that's the Jerry Jones fight against the NFL, because to the extent that you believe it's tied to Ezekiel Elliott's punishment, and I believe it is to some extent, not exclusively, but to some extent, that's where this battle moves. It moves from the courtrooms into the politics and Game of Thrones of the NFL.
So you're talking about the Jerry Jones angle. What about, before we do that, because I do want to do that, like bigger picture stuff, because this is incredible. Like, we spent the whole day yesterday when we were doing this topic going, is Jerry Jones going to serve the NFL with papers? He was threatening to do it. He said the papers are drawn up, and I'm handing to him on Friday if you go through with this Goodell extension. But from a football standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot of people that say well, Ezekiel Elliott now, with this whole deal, there's less distractions. They know what's on the table. They know it's at least for 4 games here. They get him back towards the end of the season. It's a team fighting for the playoffs. They're right outside of it right now in those top 6 in the NFC. I believe we overrate distractions. From the outside, we are consumed with it. Oh, they have to be asked about it every week. I think players do such a great job compartmentalizing this stuff that maybe it's some kind of relief, but I don't expect the Cowboys to play. The easy thing to say is I don't expect them to play better without a talent like Ezekiel Elliott, but I don't think they're going to be better just because they know what's behind them. I think so many of these players, so many of his teammates are like, oh, okay, what is it now? Oh, it's a month? I mean, they're probably tired of it too, but I don't think it's such a distraction that it's really impacted their play on the field.
I don't know that we do overrate distractions. I think that you're right. It probably hasn't impacted the team as a whole. It hasn't impacted the team overall, but I want you to consider this. This was Zeke's schedule this week and last week. He flew to New York on Thursdays for legal hearings in the Southern District of New York. That meant he was taking either Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday completely out of preparation. Jason Garrett was like, look, Zeke's a pro. He did makeup on last Friday. He crammed to understand the game plan. But he's like, these are the days we're doing walkthroughs. These are the days we're scheming and game planning and understanding what we're going to do that week. That's a pretty big distraction for a single individual player. In this case, Zeke. I don't know how much, Ryan, that bleeds over into the entire team. That part's probably overrated.
We're the ones always asking about it being a distraction, though. And it's part of our job. We have to ask that question. Hey, your thoughts this week. If I'm covering the Cowboys, if I'm on the Cowboys beat every single day, I have to ask about it. But if I wasn't, how often do you think the team is talking about this stuff? I don't think that they do. I don't think guys are sitting around the locker room being like, man, did you see the news? You hear Ryan Smith say it's not actually over yet? Like, what does that mean? Did you hear Will Cain's breakdown at First Take? Yeah, I agreed with some of his stuff.
I know they say that. I think that when it comes to the Ezekiel Elliott case, they probably got tired of it. I bet it came to be.
Who didn't?
No, even the players, the Dallas Cowboys. I bet it got to be Wednesday, Thursday. Like, is Zeke with us this week? I don't know.
And as far as the game planning stuff, like I do understand it, but it wouldn't be the first time ever, especially when you look at injuries with running backs. It's probably the easiest position to figure out what the game plan is. And then you plug in one of the other running backs, you go, okay, you ready to go? You're like,
yeah, man, but it's not like you're in the ice tub and they're throwing stuff up on the whiteboard in the next room over. You're on a plane to New York while the rest of your teammates are in Dallas.
Yeah, but if you're McFadden or you're one of the backups, you're not going, wait a minute, the Second Circuit Court said what? I thought he was going to win this appeal. I wasn't really ready this week. I just don't think any of the guys are as affected by this as we are consumed from
this
a news
news
standpoint.
Broke last Friday that he was going to be available for the Kansas City Chiefs game. Don't you think Alfred Morris and Rod Smith were like, okay, I guess that changes my weekend?
Yeah, I do, but not to the point where they get out there and they're going out to Garrett in the sideline, like, I just don't really know what to do. I'm like, hey, we hand it off to you and you run in that direction, okay? Yeah, there's a block every now and then. Yeah, I think I am. I think I am minimizing the running back job.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Today it is Will Cain and Ryen Russillo on a Friday for the guys. Field Yates is going to be hanging out, talking a ton of football. We'll get some hoops in as well.
Nice.
So it's good to see you, Field. Mellowed out Field Yates early today. You got a long one in front of you. He's already ready to go to First Take. People are going to stop giving you heat about the suit because you have other responsibilities here.
Who's giving me heat?
A lot of girls were talking about it.
I heard that too.
Really?
Saw it on Twitter also. Yeah,
What?
You're trending for a second.
Do you know what?
Is everything trending because it's 6 a.m. though?
Yeah, that's like there are only like 4 things that are actually being discussed, so inevitably you are trending.
I'm going to tell you something.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Twitter doesn't matter. That's the truth. We give entirely too much credit to Twitter.
Yeah, but you're going to be on it the whole show. You'll be on it the whole show.
My mind
I didn't say that,
exploded. My mind has exploded.
This whole time, it's not real. There's not going to be something else. Will there be something else in 10 years that I'm updating constantly, that I'm constantly looking
It'll keep getting smaller because Twitter's like 15% of the population is on Twitter even signed up for it. So in the future, we'll be super influenced by one person somewhere giving us some feedback.
That'd be good. It would be nice to streamline the whole thing.
Hopefully you're married to them.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is celebrating 5 years and more than 500 cars donated to vets. To learn more, visit keystoprogress.com. Let's start with last night, okay?
Yep.
Not a great game. We knew with Drew Stanton coming in. There's a bunch of different angles on this whole Arizona and Seattle matchup. Seattle wins, but Richard Sherman now out for the season with that torn Achilles. What does that mean for the secondary and a defense that's been slipping a little in Seattle?
I'm not sure it'll catch up to Seattle before the postseason. Like, I still think there's an excellent shot they make the playoffs. They're obviously 6-3 right now. They're a half game back of the Los Angeles Rams, who they've already beaten once in Los Angeles. They have another game against them at Seattle. They're very good at home. So in some ways, and not to make a lazy comparison, but it reminds me of what happened with Earl Thomas last season. He misses the final 4 games of the year because of that broken leg. He's on injured reserve. And Seattle still made it to the playoffs, and maybe they weren't a great team going into the playoffs, but you still said, and we actually talked about this on your show yesterday, Ryan, like, we can't quit the Seahawks, right? I'm going to be a year too late to anoint the Seahawks as not a legitimate contender going forward, rather than a year too soon. But this could catch up to Seattle in the postseason because Sherman, he is a dominant player in that defense. Not a good player, not an occasionally good player, not a regressing player, a dominant player in that defense. And as much as it's difficult to quantify what an emotional heartbeat is, it certainly feels like Richard Sherman brings a lot to that carbon of that defense. So it's a big loss.
I get what you're saying on you're telling the public, I'm going to be sticking up for Seattle a year longer than I should be.
Yes.
And I actually admire that honesty. And I feel like that's kind of the group I've been in for a long time. I look at Seattle and go, you know what, I just trust him. Russell Wilson towards the end of a game, the magic that guy pulls off, I still feel like he's almost underappreciated. There's certain special things that Russell Wilson can do that I don't know other quarterbacks can do. He's just, it's not going to be 300 yards every single game,
yep.
but what he does to close is special. All right, so I'm rambling. They have not been the same defensively, and now they lose one of the best corners.
Yep.
They're still good, but they're not great. The other angle you can go with this, and Mike Sando hit it on yesterday on ESPN.com, is that their opponent's winning percentage is the lowest of any team in the NFL. So ultimately you could say they've had the easiest schedule at this point in because of their own division, because of who they've cross-matched in the AFC, AFC South, NFC West, and they haven't played the better teams in the NFC East yet, okay? So Are we being fooled? Are we being fooled into thinking that when it comes playoff time, you know what's going to happen? Be like, oh, you don't want to play Seattle. I think we just do that all the time. If somebody's been successful, we do this thing in the playoffs. You go, oh, nobody wants to play them when they may not be that great offensively, and they may be the worst version of themselves defensively they've seen in like 4 or 5 years.
I was going to say, like, their worst version of defense could still be one of the 5 best defenses in football
now,
or
yeah.
top 10, whatever you may think. Maybe it's possible that like they just haven't. I think sometimes we talk about like quality of. I think we obviously talk about quality of competition more in college football. So like maybe they are to cross-sport analogy. Maybe
they're Wisconsin.
I was going to say Wisconsin or Miami right now. Like
yeah, but they have that win against the Rams.
Yeah,
Wisconsin doesn't have a win against the Rams.
That's fair. Yeah,
I'm not buying
playing
that,
later on.
I mean, they got the Rams win. That Texans win is with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, that's
it was
fair.
An incredible
Listen, they have 2 wins that. Those are probably their 2 signature wins of the season.
There's the 2 best. They beat the Redskins, the Redskins.
No, they lost the Redskins.
No, they lost.
Lost the Redskins last week.
They beat the Cardinals, the Giants, the Colts, and the Niners. Those
right.
are 4 of the 6.
They lose to the Packers in week 1, obviously, in that very tight game at Lambeau Field. Maybe we'll learn more about Seattle in their final 6 games than we did during their first 6 games. They do play Atlanta. I believe that game is in Seattle on Monday Night Football.
It is.
In, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. So that'll be a good test, despite what Atlanta has looked like so far this season. Maybe, though, the realization will come in the playoff. And I think what got Seattle last year in the postseason was their second postseason game was, of course, against Atlanta. And Atlanta had this offense that was a juggernaut at the time that Seattle even could be just fine defensively for the first half of that game and then just have no ability to play catch-up in the second half. If you look at the NFC right now, like I'm not sure how many teams are prepared to run away from Seattle on offense. Obviously, the Rams have a very good offense. The first time they played Seattle, they got held to 10 points. The Eagles have a very good offense as well. But that feels like the only offense right now that is currently playing at such a high level that's in the playoff mix in the NFC that you're like, all right, they're just gonna scoot right past Seattle to the point where they may not have a chance. New Orleans is very good offensively, but the defense has been the story for them over the past 6 weeks, which has catalyzed that 6-game winning streak.
I want to ask you about Jalen Ramsey and A.J. Green.
Okay.
Jalen Ramsey went off yesterday on A.J. Green, backed up what happened this past weekend when they got in a fight. Do you have sound, Ryan, of Jalen Ramsey going off on A.J. Green?
Yeah, here's Jalen Ramsey, and this is hurtful.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't say nothing like that. But you feel me? I told him almost every play that he was weak, that he was soft. That demonstrate facts. He just couldn't handle the truth. These facts. Told him that his time almost up. Told him that it was easy, which it was. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. I was just out there spitting facts to him, so he got mad.
What is the sentiment in the league about Jalen Ramsey?
I would imagine that someday someone's going to write a piece on ESPN.com that's like the all-star team of players that when they're on your team, you love them. When they're on a different team, you have a hard time tolerating them. And Jalen Ramsey could become the captain of that team. He's incredible. I mean, I think probably one of the 3 best cornerbacks so far this season. You make the case for him as the best cornerback so far this season. Him, Patrick Peterson, Xavier Rhodes, that kind of caliber of player so far. I know this and talking to players for a long time, being around the game for long enough. The defensive players especially love cornerbacks with confidence that borders on irrational confidence sometimes. And not that Jalen Ramsey doesn't have the skill set to back up his words so far this year, but there are going to be plays where he's going to get beat, and he's going to say to himself, he got lucky. That was the one he gets. He's only getting one today. He just got it. And this kind of confidence right here, like I think it's sort of infectious for the rest of that defense where they're awesome. Like they've got good players at all 3 levels, but you've got guys, you've got alphas now. You've got alphas in Jacksonville that, you know, if they hit this, hit the skids on offense at some point this season, which they've actually been, slightly above average on offense or just good enough to make them a 6-3 team or a 5-3 team to this point. Like this kind of that guy right there, it's going to be the kind of player that like the rest of the dudes respond to every single snap.
Here's what I like about it, okay? Because I think as you get older, you don't hear people as they get older. You don't hear older guys going, you know what I'm liking more and more as I get older? Young and brash.
Yeah.
I like young, arrogant, cocky. So when I went into this, I'm going, well, I'm not going to like this. I like A.J. Green.
Yeah.
I believe A.J. Green's one of the most underrated players of his era.
Right.
He's been an incredible wide receiver. If it wasn't for A.J. Green, who knows what we're talking about with Andy Dalton. Seriously, that's how good A.J. Green is.
Right.
But, man, when you go 1 catch for 6 yards, and Jalen, that's the short version. We ran the nice version on Mike and Mike. We ran a minute and a half on my show yesterday where he's going, I talked to his teammates, and they told me he's soft. He goes, I talked to his teammates, and they said we knew once he started talking, because A.J. never talks, like we knew once A.J. started talking to you, you had him. You got him. Like, I want to go, wait a minute, this is A.J. Green, and he tossed you to the ground twice. Like, come on, man.
And this isn't the first time Jalen Ramsey has said, I don't care who you are. I'm going after
He showed up here and was like, I don't care.
Yep.
I'm Jalen. Nice to meet you. So it's hard when you're good. I can't really dispute anything he just threw out there.
You're absolutely right, Field. He's the kind of guy that if he's on my team, I love him. And if he's on anyone else's team, I hate him.
If you're in Duval this morning, you're like Team Ramsey. If you're in Cincinnati right now, you're like, that guy should be suspended.
But let me just ask you this now. Is he right? Is he telling the truth? Is Jalen correct that the league views A.J. Green as soft and weak? Please tell me the answer to that is no.
Put it this way. It's the first time I've heard it. And I think there's sometimes this, like, I'm not sure if it's an error we just commit, but, like, being soft-spoken and being soft are different, right?
Absolutely.
Like, just because you don't say much doesn't mean that you're not tough. And I think about A.J. Green and, like, how can you sort of measure toughness in a player? And, like, I think if the barometer is getting in fights on the field, like, that's a dumb barometer, right? That's hurting your team.
Is A.J. being quiet his whole career hurt him in this spot? Because that's why I think he's always been underrated. He's not the diva receiver.
Yes, to your explanation that he is underrated, which I agree with, it is partially because he has been so quiet and partially because he's in Cincinnati with Andy Dalton. He shouldn't be underrated. He is that good.
I was going to say, like, I don't think about him as like the alligator arms wide receiver. He goes over the middle and you have fear of him just going, not for me, like whatever, like incomplete, go back for the next snap. I also don't think of him as a player that, like, when it's close, 50-50 in terms of playing through an injury or not, he says, I'm going to take the long view here. Like, he has been there since Cincinnati was not good. Like, the Bengals have been kind of good for the past 5 years. People maybe sort of lose track of the fact that they were the joke of the league. They were the Browns before the Browns were the Browns, right? And I don't personally view A.J. Green as soft. I don't see it in his game. I do a radio show every Sunday with one of his closest friends, and they were teammates together, Andrew Hawkins, for 6 hours. And that was never the sentiment that I got from Andrew. And we were talking about this a bunch on Sunday. And he was like, the word soft never came up. He was just surprised because A.J. is such a mild-mannered guy that you would never expect that kind of outburst on the field from him.
With Field Yates, Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. It's Will Cain, Ryen Russillo today. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I want to play for you this Ryan Smith sound on the Ezekiel Elliott case, because now we know that the appeal was denied. He's going to be out at least 4 games, but there's still this caveat.
No, it's not over, because here's what happens. The Players Association, when they made this appeal, they asked for 2 things. One was an emergency stay, essentially saying, let me play while you decide this appeal that I have. And the other one was to appeal the decision of the district court judge that didn't allow him to play, that preliminary injunction. The emergency stay's gone, so now he doesn't play for now. An expedited hearing has been scheduled on the appeal of the district court. So what does that mean? That means the lawyers are back in court. They will make more arguments about that injunction that the district court ruled on. They'll have procedural discussions, and then that will be ruled on. Now, if that goes against him, he has other appellate rights as well. So this thing is not over yet. But for now, he sits while the lawyers argue.
Field, I've said that this thing, for all intents and purposes, and all the discussions that we're going to have on ESPN and most fans care about, is over. The punishment is now being imposed. People rarely go back and care about guilt or innocence once punishment is imposed. How much of a punishment do you think this will be on the Dallas Cowboys? How will they cope with Ezekiel Elliott's loss?
Yeah, it's a legit loss here. And I think that your point is well taken about the public and not caring so much about the punishment once, or innocence or guilt once the punishment's levied. And maybe it's because a good chunk of my responsibility here during the football season is tied to the fantasy football. But I'm just telling you, the cross section of people that follow me on social media and care about my input have thought about the Zeke Elliott punishment through fantasy football first. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I think it's just a reality that we've almost dismissed what it means for the Cowboys for the next 4 weeks, at least, if not 6 games. Their offense was humming over the past 3 or 4 games. Zeke has been the best running back in football for the past month, and maybe it's because Zeke turned a corner. Maybe it's because the offensive line turned a corner. Obviously had 2 players starting at new spots this year behind that dominant offensive line last year. Maybe the defense has tightened the screws enough. Certainly having a healthy Sean Lee matters. Their schedule going forward, I don't have the next 4 games ahead of me. Obviously, they start with Atlanta this Sunday. But, yeah, Dallas, whose margin for error right now is already slim because of how good Philadelphia is, it's not easy. I mean, it's certainly not easy.
By the way, it's at Atlanta. You got it, Will?
Yeah, Dallas' next 4 games, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Washington. 3 of those games at home.
Is that the Rams or the Chargers?
Chargers.
So, I mean,
sorry, we have to clarify that.
Yeah, I know. It's
Angeles.
3 or 4 at home.
San Diego sometimes.
I say it happens to me all the time. But if you start to get ahead of the playoff picture, if you think Philly's going to be there in the end, if you think Minnesota's going to be there in the end, and 1 of 2 of Carolina and New Orleans, and then at least 1 of 2 between LA and Seattle, it's a difficult thing going forward. As much as we talk about, we've wondered who will take over for Zeke. The bottom line is, no matter who takes over for Zeke, it's 40% of Zeke, right? I mean, Alfred Morris is the opposite of an explosive play waiting to happen. Rod Smith is a good story, but if he's still a third-string running back.
Yeah, there's people listening right now going, wait a minute, Broncos?
I know.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's another.
Yeah, Rod Smith, the brother of Jalen Smith, the Cowboys linebacker. Rod Smith, who played at Ohio State.
I know you know who Rod Smith is, but
I'm telling you right now, if you want to get a buy low, sell high candidate, either in fantasy or just in
life,
winning at the bar,
football stock,
buy Rod Smith. Guy. And I know you say not explosive play. Those 2 guys have a 70-yard and a 45-yard.
Well, I mean, Alfred Morris, it was the parting of the Red Seas. You remember that play? You remember that play? I know you remember that play. It was like.
Are you calling Alfred Morris underrated, sneaky big play Alfred Morris?
I'm telling you that by the end of this 4-game stretch, we'll be having conversations huh? Yeah, wow.
I'm glad to come back on the show, dude. Radio, you're all over the place here at ESPN. I'm glad to. I'll take you to task on First Take and see if we can hash out that debate.
I got to ask you about a different transaction here, because I think some people saw it as a surprise, maybe not so much. Martellus Bennett.
Yeah.
What's the backstory on what happened with him with the Packers, and now he's on the Pats?
Put it this way. So that's going to be whenever that backstory is revealed. And he took to Twitter last night and basically said, wow, I'll tell you everything I can tell you at some point. Obviously, the operation, how he gets to New England is, he gets claimed. He goes on waivers, he gets claimed. Obvious need, or I would say an apparent need for the Patriots, backup tight end to Gronk. Dwayne Allen has 0 catches this season. That part is sort of easy to figure out. But in terms of how he departed Green Bay, he popped up after the bye with a shoulder injury. And it feels like people are just wondering, like, did he find a way to get out of Green Bay?
Because they owe him.
Got hurt.
They owe him money. I mean, the way the normal contract, he would be paid, and now they want some of this money back.
So they paid him a
disclosing
significant sign. Yeah, he was cut with a failure to disclose a physical condition.
What does that mean?
It means that the team felt as though he withheld information that impacted his ability to be on the field. And when you do that, the reason why you list a player with that designation is it opens the door to you recouping money that you had previously paid him in the form of a signing bonus. So the base salary the Patriots are on the hook for the rest of the season. But the money that they paid him up front when he first put pen to paper back in March, Green Bay may be looking to recoup some of that money from Bennett by saying, listen, you were not forthright about stuff. Now, we can give you a physical, but if there's stuff that we don't see that you're aware of and you don't make us aware and you don't tell us about that, like, it may mean cash back out of your bank account into our wallets. So I have a feeling this will maybe it never gets public because the Packers are one of those organizations that are, sort of so tight-lipped. But it could get ugly between those two sides.
The signing bonus was $6.2 million.
So they could look to take some of that back, $6.2 million back, part of that back.
Let me ask you about this fight between Jerry Jones and Arthur Blank, Jerry Jones and the NFL, Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell. The way I just framed that is the way this entire conversation has been had over the last couple days and probably will be had over the next coming days. But is it really Jerry Jones versus all of these parties? How much is he alone in this fight field?
Yeah, I don't.
How many other owners are with him?
I don't think it's just Jerry Jones. I think it's Jerry Jones and a small cross section of owners elsewhere who he has either a very tight relationship with, either who he perhaps has groomed during their own ownership in the NFL. Obviously, if there's like a prospective new owner, he has to be approved, and Jerry Jones is someone who probably has played a significant role, an influential role in people getting ownership roles in the NFL. So I'd imagine this is not a one-man band that's just fighting this fight because he unilaterally feels these ways and doesn't feel as though he is being treated properly or feels as though the NFL or the commissioner has duped him or the competition or the compensation committee has duped him. I think it's probably Jerry and more people that we have not yet fully become aware of, but could be very soon. This is like it's this undercard of the NFL season. There's always something beyond the games on Sunday.
I've heard numbers like 17 owners on a call with Jerry Jones where he's attempting to persuade them. I've heard numbers like 15 owners that might be with him. When you say small cross-section, can you give me any sense?
No, I've no
sense. Is it a dozen? Is it 5?
I don't think I've ever heard more than a dozen. Everything I've ever read, it's 5 or 6 are with him, then there's 6 fence sitters, and then you're looking at the other 20 that go, hey, we did a great job in the last labor deal. We got a huge chunk of that money coming back. The players traded money for extra rest, basically, in the offseason.
Yep.
Let's just keep moving forward here. But it is worth pointing out, every story that I've read from all these, there are sources that completely contradict. One NFL front office source says this. One other owner says this. Another person. Not all of it is ever in line. But it never feels like it's more than 12.
There's a column up at SI.com by Michael McCann, who's a great lawyer, and he's talking about the legal path for Jerry Jones. And at the end, he says, it's not just a legal path. There is an option to have a vote of no confidence for Roger Goodell. And that's why I asked about how many owners are with him. If enough owners sign on to a vote of no confidence in a CEO-type situation, you're moving forward with a job that the majority of your employers don't want you to be in.
Well,
that's what happened with Fay Vincent in the 1990s in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL feels as though this is, I don't say a non-issue, but the NFL, Joe Lockhart does communications for the NFL, does conference calls now almost twice a week, and he said yesterday, it's close. So the NFL seems to think that this extension for Roger Goodell, which I'm not saying that's the the nail in the coffin for this entire conversation, but ultimately that's what the hang-up is.
Yeah, they were trying to leak yesterday that it was going to be 32-0, the vote for Goodell's, and be like, that doesn't seem to make a ton of sense. I don't think you're getting more.
A lot of this stuff.
There.
I mean, a lot of the stuff like. It feels like there could be like a a movie like 10 years from now that's just like on the goings ons of owners and NFL powers that be. I don't know.
Have Wickersham write it because I can't wait for the next Wickersham piece and from Don Van Natta.
It's coming out soon.
Hey everyone, Mike Golick here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I've never felt more alive.
Disclaimer. Geico cannot guarantee you will feel more alive. You either possess functioning respiratory and circulatory systems, or you do not, or you are a zombie. If you are indeed a brain-starved zombie and you would like to save money on car insurance, the Geico legal team applauds your excellent life choices, even in your shambling afterlife. But we strongly encourage you to visit geico.com or download the Geico app. Please stay a minimum of 500 feet away from our large and presumably delicious, delicious brains.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Will Cain, Ryen Russillo, it's Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. A bunch of football guests coming up. Darren Woodson a little bit later, Matt Burke, and Art Pugh, former Army Special Forces Green Beret, and Tim Tebow with a loaded slate for college football. SportsCenter is brought to you by Discover. If you're a Discover credit card member, there's an important action you can take right now. Activate Discover's free Social Security alerts online, and they'll alert you if your Social Security number is found on any one of thousands of risky websites. Learn more at discover.com/free alerts. Limitations apply. Want to get to a bunch of college football stuff. All of our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Before we do that, because we were just finishing up with this whole Jerry Jones deal, ownership, power struggle, the dynamic. And the players always end up on the wrong side of this because the way it's set up, it's just, hey, we're going to lose the negotiation. It's just a matter of how much. And the last time through, the NFL players took a pretty big hit financially. But the owners are usually fighting with themselves more than they even are the players. So whenever we look at, you even have the Donald Trump thing where other owners go, the reason he's criticizing us is because he was denied ownership of the Buffalo Bills. Sad, I believe is what he said about it. Mark Cuban's mentioned, I don't know that I could get, I think he was at one point he wanted the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he goes, I'm probably a little too brash, maybe a little bit too much. I wonder if some NBA owners go, should we have signed up with Cuban? And I love Cuban as an owner, even if I can disagree with him at times. You believe that I thought you would be approved quicker than I would be if we wanted to buy an NFL team, which probably isn't going to happen, even though the fill-in rate on Mike and Mike's pretty good.
Right. Don't discount the possibility.
You never want to limit yourself any ceiling whatsoever.
Don't want to say billions. Definitely not in my future.
Yeah, you don't want to just rule it out before you're 50.
Right.
Pretty good chance.
Is that
though.
The cutoff?
I have
not
a friend,
a billionaire by 50, you're not going to be? What is the cutoff?
I had a friend that at one point, we're out, we kind of talking about our lives, self-assessment, 30s. And he just said, I know I'm not ever going to be, really successful. I went, whoa. It just blew my mind. I'm like, you're already waving the flag at 33? He goes, I'm never going to be rich. I'm never going to be rich. Go on a vacation maybe once a year, get a new car every 5 or 6. I'm over it. And it blew my mind. I was like, how? So you're right. Don't limit yourself. You are the stuff which dreams are made of.
I think I've got a little bit too much Mark Cuban in my past, to your point. I don't know, actually in my present and my future as well.
You think they would say no to you?
I think I've said things and will continue to say things that not everybody will give a 100% approval rating on.
Who'd be the most likely to be of the on-air guys?
Okay.
Lebitard? No.
No.
Lebitard's a no. Stu Gatz would probably be, maybe. Stu would be like, hey, do we want a 40-point touchdown? Like little jock jams?
I think if we're looking for the most likely pool, it's not going to come from the host types.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. All right, I want to ask you this question.
But I got an answer for you.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I think the most likely guy to get approved for NFL ownership will be on this show in about 40 minutes.
Oh, easily. Yeah, that's Darren Woodson.
It's Darren Woodson.
That would be. We'll ask him how the portfolio's doing. This sounds evil. Okay, it sounds mean, and I'm not sure I want to give you the mean answer, but I feel like I'm leaning mean on this deal. Wisconsin fans are upset. They're upset that there already feels like there's some kind of campaign to keep them out of the college football playoff. That is not what's happening, but I'm telling you, it's a very easy way to put it together where you could see them at 13-0 being out, and that is the undefeated SEC champ, 1-loss Clemson, 1-loss Oklahoma, Notre Dame takes care of Miami and everything remaining on their schedule. That 13-0, I don't think it's impossible to see Wisconsin out. The more interesting thing is, do you want them to be left out?
Yes. And not because I have any hatred towards the Badgers.
Have you been there?
Wisconsin.
Have you been to Madison? Because it's the best.
Never been to the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's great. Nobody would ever root against them because of who they are. This is not there's other geographical biases and fan bases. We go, that's not what this is with the Badgers. But why are you saying yes? Because I feel like a lot of people would just want to see them left out, and it's not specific to them.
Right. It's because leaving out an undefeated champion of the Big Ten is the quickest way to either end or expand the college football playoffs, and I want it to be bigger than 4 teams. I want it to be, I can settle on 8. My opening bid is Mike Leach. Let's start with 64. That way I get you back to 8 or 16. 8 will get the conference champions in and a few other Cinderellas and dark horses that deserve to be in, and every team in the top 8 could theoretically possibly win the national championship.
Okay, but that's where the playoff expansion thing, I look at those teams and I start to go, you know what? I don't want this team playing for a national championship. And I'm not talking about 13-0 Wisconsin, because in that scenario, they may still get into the 4.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Darren Woodson here. Mike and Mike reminding you, if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. If your football obsession has strained a relationship, you need 1-800-Flowers.com. For a limited time, 1-800-Flowers is offering up 40% off of best-selling bouquets and gifts, perfect for birthdays and anniversaries. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. 2 things I got to do here with you. Richard Sherman, his Achilles, he's out. What's it mean for the Seahawks? Have to do that stuff. But I can't believe you haven't heard this yet. Jalen Ramsey, corner for the Jags, who's been terrific in his young career.
Absolutely.
We knew
just
he was
here
fast.
on campus, what, a week ago?
Yeah,
2 weeks
bye
ago?
week. He showed up. Yeah. People got to meet him. We knew before the draft, he's like, I should go number 1. What?
Yeah.
As a corner. But he got in the fight with A.J. Green. Yep. Here is him talking about A.J. Green and everything that happened at his – so this is Ramsey at his locker. There's a longer version of this, too, but he calls him out.
I didn't say nothing like that. But you feel me? I told him almost every play that he was weak, that he was soft. Them is straight facts. He just couldn't handle the truth. Them is facts. Told him that his time almost up. Told him that it was easy, which it was. He had 1 catch for 6 yards. I was just out there spitting facts to him, so he got mad.
Well, I don't think anything wrong with that. I mean, listen, man, we act like this is the only guy out there in the league that talks trash every day. I mean, guys talk like this all the time.
Okay, but that's not the debate. The debate here is that I went into this going, I know I'm going to stick up for A.J. Green.
Right.
I love A.J. Green. I think A.J. Green's the most underrated receiver of his era.
Right.
But, man, Jalen did kind of win the war.
Yeah,
and, I mean, what did he say? But he's calling him soft.
Yeah, man, that happens.
After the game, not talking trash on the field.
No,
at the locker.
That's how it is.
Soft. Is A.J. Green soft?
No. And look, you can't look at A.J. Green. Look at his track record and things that he's done on the field. Is he quiet? Yes. He's not, demonstrative like Ocho Cinco. I mean, he's a totally different guy. He's a guy that plays the game and does it in a professional manner outside of what happened this past weekend. But A.J. Green has been one of the most dominant wide receivers in our league for years. So for us to think otherwise, that's crazy. I like the fact that how Ramsey went at him, because Ramsey is a guy that has an ultimate confidence, which you have to have. There's another guy that just tore his Achilles yesterday that's in Seattle. He talks a lot like that, a lot of trash, a lot like that. I mean, you have to have that mentality when you're on the outside. So does it stop after the game? No. I mean, after that fight, all bets are off. Guys are going to talk as much trash as they want to. And I respect the fact that Ramsey went at him. Hey, he's got to set himself as one of the best corners in the league, and he's going to talk trash by doing so.
Did you talk trash?
Not like that. I mean, there's a gift. There's a gift to it now. There's a gift to talking trash. It's not like everyone is privileged to just talk trash. I was never that guy. I was so tired of chasing little guys around. I didn't have time. I'm serious. I'm chasing a guy around and I have to look at the sideline and look at Mike Zimmer and say, give me the next call. I didn't have time for all the trash talk. I left that up to Dion. I left that up to Kevin Smith, who's on the other side of me. I mean, the further you get away from the football, the more trash talking is going on. Because the closer you get in, the big tackles and the D linemen, they're all tangled up. They're tired, man. They're in and out of the game. The further away you get from it, whether you be a wide receiver, a cornerback, and sometimes safeties, there's some yapping going on. And that's how it works.
Did you worry, or did you think, or did any of your teammates think, if you didn't talk trash, that means you're soft or weak?
No. Because there's some things you can do without just talking trash. I mean, you can,
Everybody would expect Deion to be, but was it special? Was Deion a special level?
Man. He's a comedian.
What's the best Deion talking trash story?
I can't say it on the radio.
Give me the version.
I can't. No, man, I can't. I cannot say
justice.
No, because I don't do it justice. I mean, and he would. Deion
Give me the one
had
that made you laugh, or the one you were like, "That was mean."
Oh man, I mean, to his own players. I'll give you one. I'll give you one story. So we're playing in a game, and we had a guy that went down. One of the players that went down had been getting hurt the entire season. One of our own players. So it's in the middle of the game. One of our guys, the same guy, goes down, and Deion walks over. He walks over, and I'm standing there looking over the top of our player that's on the ground again for the 12th time in the same game, and he's holding his knee, and Deion looks out of it, and the look. I mean, I can't tell you what he said, but it was, look at this, and I can't say what he said. But we're in the middle of a game, and he's talking trash to his own player that's on the ground. And that just defines who he is. He just has this way, and it loosened everything up. For me, it was like, man, I feel sorry for my boy that's on the ground, but I laughed. I laughed so hard at the fact of how Deion approached it. But that's him. I mean, there are certain guys that have to loosen up the game and loosen it up for everyone else. And that was Deion Sanders. And there's some other guys like Jalen Ramsey probably the same way.
We get Darren Woodson with us, Will Cain, Ryen Russillo, Mike and Mike, ESPN Radio, Richard Sherman out, the Achilles. Yeah. What is it about the Achilles that some of these guys know? Not just when it happens, but he was on the injury report. It's almost like some guys feel like, I don't know how many more plays I have left with this team.
Yeah, I mean, when it starts to go, and I've seen it happen. I had a good friend when I played named Kevin Smith, and his Achilles had leading up to it. I mean, we went through a whole training camp where his Achilles was bothering him, and then all of a sudden it ended up going. But that's part of it. Guys get they can feel it. Especially if you're in tune with your body, and Richard Sherman is a guy that's definitely in tune with his body. He's known that there's a problem, and it just so happened on that play, but a tremendous. I mean, we can't just define his loss by what he does on the field. This guy he exudes confidence in the locker room for this football team. I mean, he is the guy, when you talk about the lightning bolt of this team, he's the guy that makes things go in that secondary. The Legion of Boom is not going to be the same. They can bring Earl Thomas back, they can bring Cam Chancellor back, but when you have Richard Sherman on that side of the ball by himself, outside on that Autobahn, taking care of his business, you can defend the rest of the field without even worrying about it.
He's 29 years old. He's 1 year away from his contract ending. Among the list of injuries you're worried about at that age, at that point in your career, is that
that's
number one? Really?
Man. That is that in the back, low back. I mean, to get back to, if this is happening when you're offensive lineman, maybe an inside D lineman, maybe a linebacker, and Johnson with the Kansas City Chiefs has gone through it a couple of times, but Larry Johnson's gone through it a couple of times. But when you get further away from the ball, your entire game relies on your quickness with your feet and hand movements and all that. I mean, at the cornerback position, that's a devastating injury because you may never come back from that because you rely on the quick feet, you rely on the cutting and all that. And it's going to take some time for him to get the confidence back and then to get his feet work back and have the confidence to go out there and play at that level.
So even Shaquille Griffin, who's been really good, they were going to move out Lane, and there's just talent-wise, even though there's talent back there.
They're not that kind of talent. That kind of talent. Makes things harder, man. It does, because Richard Sherman, and I had it. I played against one of the greatest ever to play the game, and you leave him out there, he does his business.
On a Friday, we got Will Cain, and I'm Ryen Russillo in for the guys, hoping to get ready for the weekend. We've gone over a ton of the NFL stuff, including the Thursday night result. Richard Sherman out with that Achilles injury, done a little basketball, but really excited now to be joined by former NFL vet, 15 years in the league, Matt Burke, and more importantly, Special Forces and a new TV show, Art Pugh on Outside TV. It's Heroes in the Wild.
More importantly.
Well,
man, he already got
Veterans Day.
All right.
Matt, you've been on the show a bunch of times.
Day.
I'm the rookie here. So.
Art, I want to get to your background. I want to get everything. I'm always fascinated by you guys in a way like, I don't know if jealousy is the right word, but you get it. You get it. Like, man, this guy's actually he's a real tough guy. But what was the origin here of this show where you're paired up as a Special Forces guy with a former NFL player and you're just outside trying to live in the wild?
Yeah, well, Outside TV and After the Impact Fund came together to create this digital show. And with the work that After the Impact Fund is doing, pairing athletes with veterans that have so many similarities. There's so many things in my past and Matt's past that are alike, and our drive, our motivation, our desire to win, to be the best. And it's the same in the military and in athletics. And so putting these two populations together and putting us out there in front of the public to show the similarities and show that, hey, there's a healing process that's needed as well.
So what specifically did you two guys do together? Tell us the experience you guys shared.
Yeah, so we got dropped in the middle of the Moab Desert and did a little camping, and then went on a canyoneering adventure, which I'd never done before. Art's a little more seasoned, but it's kind of about getting out there, kind of getting real, getting outside our comfort zone, doing some bonding and challenging ourselves a little bit. At least I certainly found it challenging.
What is canyoneering, Matt?
Going through canyons. There's climbing. There's rappelling, or in my case, the first time free falling. That's no joke. I actually had to be bailed out on the rappel line once. But
so what's that? Give me exactly what happens with rappelling, because it's your first time you've ever done it.
First time I'd ever done it. Got a quick class, and
we heard it was 10 seconds.
Maybe
a little brief.
Maybe 10 seconds. And so Art and I were going down at the same time. He'd done it a million times. He's jumping out of airplanes and helicopters and defending our country. I'm just out in the field on Sundays. Nothing dangerous compared to what he did, and started going down the face of a rock, and all of a sudden I was going a lot faster than I wanted to, and I couldn't stop. Not a good feeling, but I'm here, so success.
How bad was it?
Was that the big one?
It was awesome. So I mean, Matt was a stud, because I mean, this is his first time, and I don't care who you are, you're standing on the cliff. It's intimidating.
160 foot.
So I go off the side first. Matt comes off next. He's just cool, composed, rocking and rolling. And then all of a sudden I look over, and just this little bit of fear. And I see his forearm, and it is just, Matt's a big guy. It's pulsing. And rappelling is not a muscle game. It's all just leverage, some basic physics. And next thing I know, he's gone. And I was like, oh, this could be. We just turned this into a real world situation here. This is getting nasty.
We're talking with Art Pugh, former Army Special Forces Green Beret, Bronze Star Medal recipient. Obviously, Matt Burke as well. Will Cain, Ryen Russillo on Mike and Mike today. Your background, how did the motivation, the start of your military career?
Yeah, I'd always had a drive and a passion to go in the military. Just that inner willingness and need to serve. It was self-driven. I mean, it was something I wanted to do, and
Where
I wanted to do it with the best. Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. So grew up in a military family my dad was in, and just saw the relationships he had with his buddies, and that was really what it was all about for me initially. And I wanted to go in, and I wanted to go work with the best, and so I was very fortunate to get in. Go right into Special Forces training. Somehow, some way, made it through.
How do you? Okay, because whenever you look at like Special Forces guys, we all have this idea that it's the Punisher, right? Everybody rolls through. Okay, and you probably, you definitely. That's not probably. How do you look at guys, and it's the mental makeup? It's not bigger, it's not stronger. Like, how do you identify this is somebody who can make it through all this stuff, and this guy's not going to make it?
It is. It just. Matt and I were talking about this last night. It's don't ever judge a book by its cover, because I saw some of the biggest studs that were the most unassuming guys. I mean, guys that are 130 pounds put a rucksack on their back that was equal to their weight and move out and do laps around me. I mean, it's an intestinal fortitude. It's all about desire, the will, the heart. And, I was shocked. So these big studs that come out there, if they don't have it here, it's not going to happen. And so it's just that don't quit attitude. And I don't care how big you are, how small you are. They coin us as the quiet professionals, and it's something that resonates true throughout the organization.
Speaking of that, Art, doing this, I understand part of it was honoring one of your fallen buddies, one of your fallen comrades, Green Beret, Chris Falco. Tell us his story.
So Chris is was an outstanding guy. Went through basic training at the same time, and then throughout Special Forces qualification course, which is about a 2-year process. So Chris and my core group of guys, we were close. And Chris was one of those guys, he was a good bit younger than us, so we ribbed him a lot about it. But he was one of those guys that was on a trajectory to just do amazing things in the military. He was going to be a sergeant major, and he was in Afghanistan 2005 and lost his life. And it's a tragic story, but Chris died doing what he loved. I mean, he was born, God put him on this earth to be a Green Beret, and that's what he did, and he excelled at it.
The show, again, Outside TV's Heroes in the Wild. We're talking to Art Pugh, former Army Special Forces, and we got Matt Burke with us. So the concept here, you can stream this show right now up on OutsideTV.com, Heroes in the Wild. What was the hardest part for you, Matt? Other than almost dying rappelling.
I mean, that was that was the hardest part. I mean, I just the whole thing. I mean, I'm an outdoors.
How many
guy.
days was it?
It's about 2.5 days we were out there. I mean, sleeping under the stars. I'd never done anything like that. And so I think doing something that I knew I wasn't going to be very good at, that was going to challenge me, and then doing it with a guy who obviously I have the utmost respect for. And, I mean, he was Art's pretty seasoned out there, pretty comfortable. But I was like, I can't let Art down. I can't lag behind. I got to keep up, and it kind of brought me back to my playing days, where you're going to go out there and, hey, this is going to be hard. I'm going to have to push myself, but no matter what, I'm going to have to get through it.
You just said you had to be in shape to do this now. So you made news when you retired. You lost what, 75 pounds?
Something like that. Yeah.
How long did it take you to lose those pounds?
Well, I did it pretty quickly. I wouldn't advise doing that, but it was about 4 months. Yeah.
Wait a minute. What was, now that you look back on it, what do you wish you had done different?
I wish I wouldn't have spray tanned. That was definitely a bad life choice, or taking a picture with my shirt off, because the internet is eternal.
Wait, so before you took that picture of you of losing all that weight, and everybody said you were ripped, there was a spray tan involved?
Oh, absolutely. It was, I actually went spray tanning twice, and there will not be a third time.
You didn't do it before canyoneering with Art?
I didn't. No, I didn't feel like I needed to look that good for Art to be out in the wild with him.
So, we got that one up on TV right now.
Thank you for showing that.
Actually, outstanding.
Appreciate
I'm going
it.
to tell you, I think we should tweet that out from Mike and Mike, and
Please
you
do.
can get some likes.
That'd be
some
great.
Favorites.
Is there a hole I can crawl into?
Well, I'm glad you left the spray tan thing off, because I was looking at the resume, the application here for Outside TV, and had you had said that, you would have been disqualified.
Probably. Yeah, no.
So are you going to do this with more NFL guys? Is that how this is going to work, or is it? I mean, what's the plan here for getting guys out?
That's the plan. So we're going to put more athletes, more veterans out there. Put them through this. It's going to be experimental. There are going to be additional things: kayaking, mountaineering, surfing, you name it. I mean, these guys at Outside TV have done an outstanding job putting this together.
And ultimately, what we're trying to do is raise awareness and funds for After the Impact Fund, which Art and I both serve on the board. And what After the Impact Fund does is we create custom treatment plans for military veterans and former NFL players who are suffering from TBI and PTSD. And what we found is when you pair the populations together in treatment, they actually heal better, stronger, and faster. And I don't want to compare what we do as football players to what these guys do, but we are wired similarly, and there's a mutual respect there. And because that respect exists, the healing process goes that much better.
Ryan and I have talked about this on his show, and I picked up on this with a book by Eric Greitens, who's now, I think, the governor of Missouri, and he was a former Navy SEAL, and he talked about the fact that one of the things that Special Forces guys deal with at the end of their careers is a complete shift and sometimes lack in purpose. And that's something that happens to professional athletes as well. I'm highly trained, highly capable in this one specific aspect of life that I succeed at, and I'm at the best of my profession, the best in the world. And then overnight, it's gone, and you have to redefine that purpose. So I think my estimation is there's a lot of shared experience there between your two groups.
You're 100% right. Yeah, I mean, I think that both populations struggle to some extent, some worse than others, but struggle when you leave that. That's all you know. That's your entire life, and then you have to find a new purpose, a new mission to serve, a new team to be a part of, and sometimes you make bad decisions, like you go spray tanning.
If that's your worst decision, Matt, I think you're going to be okay. Matt Burke, 15 years in the NFL, Art Pugh, former Army Special Forces, Green Beret. Art, do you mind opening up about the end of your career and going through everything, and then just kind of like I've seen movies, man. I mean, so we try to pretend we act like it's like just be reacclimated to society, but I just can't imagine what it's like trying to turn that switch off.
No, it's real. I mean, you think what the military does. The military is there to train us to be effective fighters, but they're not there to train us in how to adjust to civilian life. And the same with football. I mean, y'all nailed it. I mean, guys play football. I played football up through college, and I wasn't good, but when you're good, I mean, it's your life. And I mean, Matt and other guys, they spend so much of their time playing football, and their world is revolved around football. When football ends and that uniform comes off, just like in the military, you're thrown out there to the real world, and it's a tough transition. That sense of community, that's the number one issue. You lose the community, you lose that friendship in the military. You know where to be, what uniform to be in, and what time you need to be there, and that's it. And you're always told that. The second you walk off that base, that structure's gone, and it's a tough transition. But that's where After the Impact Fund is pairing the like-minded individuals and addressing some of these issues. Because Matt and I lived it. We were very fortunate to come out of our careers intact, but yet there was so much that we bonded over in our experience with Outside TV and Heroes in the Wild. And we're hoping to duplicate that.
Yeah, purpose is an underrated aspect of the entire population's depression or existence, or not just those that are highly trained. So, again, it's Outside TV's Heroes in the Wild, following one military veteran, one former professional athlete as they go out on adventures. For you guys, it was the Moab Desert. Is there a celebrity threshold? Maybe, I don't know, like a number of Twitter followers. I don't know how you measure it, Q rating. Like, how do you get in? How big a celebrity? Is it just pro athletes? Because I'm trying to get Ryan. He's expressed some interest.
Oh, it was me? You just switched it up.
Ryan, come on, buddy.
It's for you. It's for you.
I need more of a rappelling lesson than 10 seconds.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, but don't worry. We'll set you up.
Guys, thanks a lot, especially with everything that's been going on this week. And I think there is more awareness now. I've got friends, David Vobora, who's a guy who played in the NFL, and he's helping guys to get through stuff. Nate Boyer, somebody that we've got to meet.
Yeah, Nate's a good guy.
I do think, despite how challenging this is, there's more just people that are involved in trying to make that transition easier for our vets. And I hope you guys see that, because that's at least the way I feel about it. So this is a big part of it. Again, it's Outside TV's Heroes in the Wild. Art Pugh, thank you so much for everything. And Matt Burke stopping by today.
Thanks,
guys. Thank y'all very much.
The best of Mike and Mike.
We got Tim Tebow joining us now, Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, our SEC college football analyst. Morning, Tim. What's up, man?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing?
It's good to see you. Haven't talked to you in a while. So let's start there. Which teams have you been comfortable with writing off at this point as we look at the rankings and how they've come out now week 2?
Oh, that's a tough question. I heard y'all's conversation before we came back from the break, and I do think it's going to be really tough for a Pac-12 team to be able to get in it besides Washington. I think Washington has the easiest road. Besides that, I think it's going to be really tough, and I think they're going to need a lot of help. I think they're going to need chaos. But the good thing is this is college football, and I think there will be chaos leading down the stretch.
Tim, Washington, as you mentioned, there's so many doubts because of the conference, and they have that loss. But Wisconsin's more of a doubt because of the schedule, and we're still talking an undefeated team. We've come up with scenarios that would be tougher for them to get in, but do you have a fundamental belief about an undefeated Power 5 conference champ?
No, I don't have a fundamental belief because we are told to evaluate the 4 best teams and put in the 4 best teams. If Wisconsin, if they don't look like a great team down the stretch and they're undefeated, then I do think they're going to get knocked because they didn't play anybody. And it's not these players' fault. It's the administration's fault for not facing a good opponent. And, I do think that Wisconsin can prove something down the stretch because I think Ohio State will bounce back, look good this weekend, and they will be a 2-loss team. And if Wisconsin can upset Ohio State or Penn State, whoever makes it, then I think that could be a good win for them. But I think Wisconsin's going to need help as well. I think it's going to take chaos in the SEC and in the ACC to give Wisconsin a chance to get in.
Tim, the debate we were having right before we jumped on with you is whether or not by the end of this weekend, 2 teams currently in the debate for the college football playoffs will be out of the debate by the end of the weekend. And obviously the 2 games I think that impact that the most are Notre Dame, Miami, and TCU, OU. All 4 of those teams are currently in the debate. Will the loser of those 2 games, the 2 losers, be out of it?
Well, I think for sure the TCU, OU. I think because they don't have the strength of schedule, the strength of record to be able to bounce back. I think if you have a Miami team that loses close and they can still bounce back and beat a Clemson, you could still make an argument, especially if they look good down the stretch. For Notre Dame, their loss was a quality loss, so you could still make an argument if a lot of chaos happened, but I don't think you could make the same argument for an OU or a TCU. Especially at TCU.
Right. So Miami seems to be the main one in that equation who could survive a loss under the right circumstances.
Because it's only 1 loss, and they got a chance to redeem themselves against a big-time Clemson team, and that would be a big win. One of the best wins in college football.
How big a test is Auburn for Georgia this weekend?
I think they're a huge test. I think it being here at Auburn, I think Auburn finding a passing game. I think Auburn's defense is for real. I think they're an underrated football team. The FPI has Auburn winning this game. I think it's going to be a big-time team. I think they're a big-time team. I think it's going to be a big-time game. I think Auburn has been underrated this entire season. And if you look at the way they played Clemson with a quarterback who hadn't played in 15 months or whatever and was playing his second game, they played Clemson really tough in Death Valley. And, I think this team has improved the entire year, and they're going to give Georgia a heck of a game. The good thing that Georgia has going for them is that physicality travels, and they're going to travel to the Plains, and they're going to be the more physical team on the offense and defensive front. And I think if they're able to stop the big play from Jared Stidham, they're going to win the football game. And if you look at what Auburn does well, and the reason that they've won their bit out of their 4 big games in the second half, they've either completed 2 big touchdowns or they've been 0 for 5 on 20 pass plays or more. And that's going to decide this game, because they're not going to win at the line of scrimmage. But when they get those one-on-ones down the field with Will Hastings, do they convert? They were 0 for 4 against LSU. They were 0 for 1 against Clemson. They lost both those games. But against Mississippi State, they hit and they converted. Against A&M, they hit and they converted. That will be the biggest difference maker in this game.
We're talking with Tim Tebow here, SEC Network. Will Cain, Ryen Russillo in for the mics on ESPN Radio. Has Urban Meyer reached out to you to give a speech to the Buckeyes?
We do talk, and you know that we talk all the time.
What's wrong with his team? What happened to the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Well, you say that after one loss. The week before, they had an amazing comeback, and he was pumped. And we talked first thing that Sunday morning, and he was so excited. And then this last week, it took a little longer for us to talk.
It's 55
honestly,
points to Iowa.
Was
that's what was surprising.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
And honestly, it was surprising to me, and he was shocked by it. And I promise you, if you were around the program this past week, you would have understand the stress in his voice and the pressure he's putting on every single coach and every person in that organization. And I think you're going to see a team play with absolute fire and motivation this week, because it has been a tough week for them in practice, and I can guarantee you that. And I think you're going to see a different team. I think you'll see Ohio State respond.
I know the other SEC matchup here with Bama, Mississippi State. Bama definitely taking some injuries, that linebacking core. Give me a player in that game that you think is the guy that we most need to watch out for.
It has to be Nick Fitzgerald. I know it doesn't sound good because he's the quarterback, but it has to be Nick Fitzgerald. You look at the times over the last 9 years that Alabama has lost games, and it is only because an athletic quarterback has been able to make plays, extend the game, and convert on third down. That's the only chance that you have against an Alabama team, because you can't match up physically for him for 60 minutes. The only team that I see in the country that has a chance of matching up physically with them is Georgia in the SEC championship. Besides that, what gives Alabama threats is an athletic quarterback. And Nick Fitzgerald has to do a great job of not forcing the football, but when he has an opportunity to move in the pocket, to be able to dart vertically, get a first down, continue to push the sticks, and gain more possessions that way. And eventually, you get a couple running plays going, and then you get play action over the top. It's the biggest chance that Mississippi State has, but also you got to look. Dan Mullen has coached some good games against Alabama, but he's going to have to coach a heck of a one, because top to bottom, they're just not as good as Alabama.
We got Tim Tebow with us, talking Nick Fitzgerald in the zone, brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Final thought before we go, and this is a complete, off the rails here from what we're doing college football-wise, but I've spent so many hours, Tim, talking about you and your football career on the air, because we became obsessed talking about Tim Tebow. Every Monday you'd win, we'd come in and just shrug. Be like, I don't know what's going on either. There's so much attention paid to Lonzo Ball because of the family, because of the Lakers, the whole deal. I want you to talk, what would you say to Lonzo about all of the hype that really isn't of his own doing?
Yeah, it's not on him at all, but I think you can watch the way that grown men have tried to play against him, and he's getting everybody's best shot. He's getting the little extra shoves. He's getting the pressure. I mean, against other guys, when maybe they would back off or they would give a shot or they wouldn't go as hard, against him, they're going as hard as they can. He's facing guys' best defense. He's facing their best stuff. They want to get an extra shove. They want to get an extra bump because of everything that they have heard. And you have to put that on his pops. I mean, he's making it harder for his son. And I think you saw that from game one. And honestly, I think it's something that's going to make Lonzo better in the long run. But I think it's a little tougher right now.
You're the best, man. You are the best. That was a really great breakdown. Not that I'd expect anything else. Enjoy it. SEC Network. It's Tim Tebow, the man. All right, buddy.
See you guys.
Right now, Tim Tebow was taking his earpiece out going, they asked me about Lonzo Ball. And bravo to you, man. I mean, you the only failure is you didn't fit Kaepernick in. You got 2 of the 3 in. You just didn't manage to fit Kaepernick into the equation for the ultimate sports radio question.
But what do? Do you go, hey, Tim, just before we let you go, who plays in what first? Lonzo All-Star game, Kaepernick for an NFL team. That was
Good.
it.
That was the one.
I want so badly. Now he's still listening and he's laughing at me.
Put him back in if he is.
Hey, we left a question out. I can't wait.
What is it?
Oh no,
Tim,
Tebow's still here.
Don't do this,
Tebow,
man.
Kaepernick, your thoughts?
Don't play along.
You guys are unbelievable. I can't take you anywhere. What am I going to do with you?